Hello everyone, you're watching Global Leaders Network Win TV. I'm your host, Yesoe Yoon. There are many leaders in this world in many sectors, such as government, non-for-profit organization, business, education, hospital, etc. Global Leaders Network, these kind of leaders and share their stories. Today, I invited Dr. Weiner, who is a board-certified psychologist and the director of addiction services at Linden Oaks Behavioral Health. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I direct the addiction service line at Linden Oaks, so I oversee the strategic direction of the hospital services, inpatient like our detox unit, but then also when we treat people for addiction who don't have to be hospitalized. And I care very much about trying to let the public know the truth about addiction and the substances that people get addicted to, because I find oftentimes that there's a big gap between what people think that they know and what actually is in the medical literature.
I see. So, you know that recreational marijuana, the bill has been passed and is officially legalized because 2020 January. So, let me ask you that, is marijuana is medicine?
So that's an interesting question. So there are some therapeutic parts of marijuana or cannabinoids that you can use it for. It's not completely unuseful, but what we have right now, or what we had before January 1st, really wasn't very consistent with medicine. There are a bunch of conditions that have been approved that really don't have very much basis in science, even though there are some things that it's useful for. And then the dispensing system was nothing like medicine, where a physician will say, use this substance this much for this long, and then you get something very controlled and something very standard. The medical marijuana system, you literally get your card and then you go in and you buy whatever you want. And it might be something that's good for you, it might not be something that's good for your condition, it might be way more than you need. There's really no controls. So are there some uses? There are, but the system that we have and that we had isn't really consistent with medicine.
I see. Is marijuana then is anybody who actually does marijuana can be addicted to recreational marijuana?
Oh, absolutely. So there's a myth that marijuana is not addictive, and that is completely false. It is. Marijuana actually is the second most common drug that we treat in our addiction centers at Linden Oaks, second only to alcohol. I think a lot of people get confused because they think that if a drug is going to be addictive, it's going to grab you really fast. But alcohol and marijuana are addictive in the same way, where they take time. They don't grab you all at once. But everybody knows alcohol is addictive, even though most people who drink alcohol aren't addicted to it. Marijuana is the same way, where even though most people who use marijuana aren't addicted, a certain percentage are. Statistically speaking, 1 in 10 adults and 1 in 6 young people. But for some reason, people don't see it the same way, that of course they're both addictive, and this myth has persisted.
How do you know then if someone is addicted to marijuana?
So what you want to watch for to see if someone's addicted are a couple different things. One is their control. Does it seem like if they want to stop, they can? I guess, if they don't want to stop, that's another issue as well. But if it seems like they have to use and they can't stop, that's a big one. The second is, do they continue to use marijuana even if it's causing problems in their life? If maybe they've been driving while they've been intoxicated and pulled over, or their family all has a major problem with it, but they still continue anyway. If they're having problems at work, if they've gone in impaired and are just not doing as good of a job, or if it's causing financial problems because they're spending so much money. If you keep going after consequences, that's a big red flag. And the last one is whether or not someone actually has withdrawal symptoms. So that means that if they stop using marijuana, does their body crave it? Do they start getting headaches, have trouble sleeping, get irritable? The things that we know are associated with marijuana withdrawals. So if you're starting to see those things, that could be a good sign that someone's got a problem.
Is it possible to overdose marijuana and also have a bad reaction to it?
Really good question. So you'll hear sometimes people say that no one has ever died from marijuana use. That actually is false. There was a journal article that was published in a toxicology journal, a forensic toxicology journal, that found that it was a contributing cause of death over 6 years in over 200 cases, and actually the single identified cause of death in, I believe it was 6 to 8 of them. Far cry from alcohol, of course, which kills 88,000 people a year, but absolutely it can hurt you or kill you. What's more likely, though, is going to happen if you take too much is that you're just going to have a very unpleasant feeling. It actually, we do know that after legalization in Colorado, that emergency visits tripled. And already there was an article put out on another news network about how one hospital was already seeing a spike. The two things that people come to the emergency room most for are something called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which is when you have way too much THC and you can't stop vomiting and you're also in extreme pain, and that goes on for hours. And then the other one are psychotic breaks, so actually starting someone into potentially schizophrenia. We know that that's linked very strongly to THC use.
I see. Actually, some people came to me this year and they said, oh, Yesoe, you should try marijuana. It's very safe. You will like it. So it is like similar to smoking. And I have a question that, is it really safe? And then is it harmless?
Well, so again, an interesting question. First and foremost, if you are not 25 years old, and I know we're selling it to 21 and up, but if you're not 25 years old, there's an extra amount of risk because we know there are a lot of different studies that image the brain, that marijuana can actually change the physical shape of your brain in ways that don't come back. And it can also change how well your brain works, your cognitive function. So if you're under 25 and particularly under 21, that is a very severe risk. Now, if you are over 25, if your brain is completely done developing, we're not as much concerned about those sorts of things, but we are a little bit still concerned about what do you do while you're intoxicated? Because anytime you are not thinking straight, you're not in your right mind, it leaves open the door for negative things to happen. We know that marijuana use is associated with risky sexual behavior, for example. It's associated, if you're driving high, with crashing your car more. Certainly if you're high at home all the time and you're a parent, then that could be a DCFS call. You know, you're actually impaired. And one of the biggest issues right now is that we are never the best judges of whether or not we're still high, drunk, etc. Granted, when you drink, there's a pretty normal way that alcohol makes its way out of your body. But with marijuana, we don't have that. And so when are you done being high? When are you done being impaired? That's a big open question right now that we don't have a good measurement for.
Oh, I see. So we might have more accidents, traffic accidents.
We've seen that in other states as well, actually. Yeah, we've seen traffic accidents go up. If you're an adult, really the biggest thing is just to make sure that you don't have any responsibilities, including parenting, for a significant amount of time after you use it. And if you follow those guidelines, I'm not going to lie, you'll probably be okay. But again, I can't recommend it for anyone under the age of 25.
I see. So what are the effects of then mixing marijuana with the alcohol and tobacco or even prescription drugs? So generally speaking, you never want to mix multiple psychoactive agents. So if you've got two different psychotropic medications, you unless it's under the supervision of a doctor and they're prescribed, you generally don't want to do it. And what we find is that people tend to make more irrational decisions, have more problems during those periods of intoxication than if they were using either one on their own. So I'd be a little bit less concerned about nicotine or tobacco because that one isn't going to affect your ability to think quite as much. It's a stimulant, which has a different pathway. But I definitely would not recommend mixing marijuana, alcohol, prescription drugs, any and all of the above. I see. Does marijuana use actually lead to using other drugs?
Yeah, so another way that I hear that a lot is the gateway effect. And that's another thing that people they find it to be a very controversial topic, but in addiction and addiction medicine, we actually have found that it's very true, and I want to explain why. Just because you use marijuana does not mean you're going to use other drugs. But think about it this way. If someone walked up to an average person who's never used drugs and said, hey, I've got heroin, would you like to use it with me? They'd probably say no. No, I would not like to do that, because nobody starts with heroin. Actually, the statistics we have show that 92% of heroin users have used marijuana first. And the reason for that is that it's a really tough sell to get someone to start with heroin. But if, say, you're a young person and someone comes up to you and offers you marijuana, and you're like, well, isn't it legal anyway? It must be safe. It's just a plant. I'll give that a try. Now you're somebody who gets high for fun, and you're hanging out with other people who get high for fun. And that raises the chance that you're going to come in contact with all sorts of other things. Like someone will bring some Xanax to a party, or cocaine, and then maybe at some point someone will bring an opioid, like Norco, or hydrocodone or oxycodone, or those sorts of things, and that gets you hooked, and eventually you make it to heroin. Long story short, these hard drugs, like if heroin's step 5, you cannot get to step 5 unless you take step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Just because you take step 1 doesn't mean that you're going to take the rest of them, but it opens a gateway. And that's what a gateway drug means. It opens the way forward for things to get worse. If you don't open the gate, you're never going to go through.
I see. Can secondhand marijuana smoke actually affect non-smokers, including children?
So we don't have as much data about that. We know that secondhand cigarette smoke, for example, can cause cancer and a lot of harmful conditions. What I can tell you is that most of the THC does not get into your body from secondhand THC smoke. You might not appreciate the smell, but it's not necessarily going to get into your body. We don't have very many studies, though, on it in terms of how does secondhand THC smoke impact children. But honestly, now that we've made these changes, if we wait 10 or 20 years, eventually we will find out. My opinion, better safe than sorry. If it's not something that you want in your body, try to stay away from it, and certainly try to keep it away from kids.
I see. I have a question to you. So you probably have a lot of patients related to addictions, including recreational marijuana. How often do you see addiction related to recreational marijuana, and then how do you, give advice to those who wants to actually overcome the addiction?
Yeah, well, it's really tough whenever anyone's trying to get over any addiction. And to be honest with you, marijuana is one of the hardest substances statistically to stop using once you've gotten an addiction to it. It and opioids are right up there as some of the hardest to actually stop from in terms of the data. In terms of what we tell them, though, if someone's trying to get off of marijuana or any other drug, really the biggest thing is trying to first help them clarify why were they doing it in the first place. Because usually by the time you're addicted to something, it's not just social, it's not just for fun. It feels like a need. And it's usually serving a purpose, like to cope with depression, anxiety, trauma, a bad marriage. There's a lot of reasons why people fall into it. But you just take the substance away, you still have the problem that you have to find another way to deal with. So the first thing is to figure out what problem are they really trying to solve? And then as you help them learn how to resist those cravings and not do that behavior, also try to help them figure out how to cope with the problem that was leading to their use in the first place. And so that's generally speaking the way we approach it.
I see. Actually, I participate in the movement of opting out recreational marijuana in several villages, and I realized that it's mainly because we are bringing this recreational marijuana in the States mainly because of a revenue, and then also decriminalize those who actually in jail due to having recreational marijuana, So they legalize this so that those who are in jail, they can get out, and also they can clean the records related to that. That's my opinion, but I also have heard that you actually participated in several movements in several villages related to this. And what were the reasons, and also which direction should we take?
So I did actually. I've been to a lot of villages around the Chicago area, and I participated because I think it's very important that that someone from the medical community steps up and speaks their mind about what's happening, where the marijuana industry is really fooling the public, a tremendous deal. So for example, most of the public doesn't know, we actually decriminalized marijuana in the state about 3 years ago, and there's nobody in jail for simple marijuana possession. We stopped doing that. So people thinking that they're just stopping people from going to jail, that's not what this is about. You can also, if you wanted to expunge records, you could legalize possession without legalizing sale, like they did in Washington, D.C., like they did in Vermont. So that means that there's no penalty for having it, but it means that you're not going to give birth to this new addiction for profit industry. And that's the thing that got me out of the hospital and into the public talking about this, because what I found was that people were always talking about revenue and this idea of bringing a black market product into the light and no more people were going to use. And that's just not true. We know that the black market continues to exist because the taxes are so high, and selling to people under 21. It's still there. We know that it does raise usage rates. In Colorado, depending on the report you look at, in 8 years, their marijuana use rate has gone up by either 40% or 90% in adults. It's shocking. And so I treat addiction for a living. And the more people who use this substance, the more harm it creates. And I speak out against my financial interest. A lot of the people who are for this want to make money off of the people of Illinois to fill their bank accounts. To be perfectly frank with you, the more people who use pot, the more money I will make, because the more people who will get addicted and who will come to me for help. And so I stand up and talk about this because it's just simply the right thing to do. And if we choose to do this, it needs to be based on real data, real evidence, rather than lies, to be frank.
I went to movie theater in Evanston, and close to movie theater there were dispensaries, and there's so many lines, people waiting for marijuana. So what do you think about this, marijuana population? Can you break it down? Who isn't using marijuana most? And also, how can we actually predict that how much revenue that we will bring to Illinois?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So what we're seeing right now with the really long lines is a product of a couple things. The first is that it's new, right? There's novelty, so there's going to be a spike for that. The second is that by design, actually, the medical marijuana dispensaries are the only ones who got to open up recreational marijuana on January 1st. And that, again, was by design so that they could make money and they'd get first into the market. But so what you have then is a low supply along with this high demand, which is where those lines are coming from. I think what you're going to start to find is that the lines are going to get shorter after it's not so new anymore and after there's more places for people to go, which is we're probably going to see roll out over the next year or two. Now that said, in terms of who uses it, what we tend to find is that most people who use marijuana are under 35 or 40. It's the older demographic tends not to be the highest users of marijuana, or to be honest with you, any addictive substance. If you think of alcohol, if you think of harder drugs, most of them aren't people in their 50s, 60s, 70s. They tend to skew young, and in other states we've seen that there too. Now, in terms of revenues, that's another tricky question, because on the one hand, of course, you're selling the product, you're going to bring in tax money, but that's not actually the full picture, because just looking at revenues doesn't look at the cost of creating that revenue. And what we found actually is that out of Colorado, there was a report that was published that found that they lose $4.50 in public health cost for every $1 they make in taxes. So actually the state loses money as a whole because of these policies. And this is nothing new. We've actually seen in alcohol and tobacco that we lose between $10 and $15 for every $1 we collect in taxes for those substances. So we've always actually known that addiction for profit doesn't make our state wealthier. What it does allow people to do is to kind of trumpet, oh, look at all this money that we brought in. Look at how much we're selling. Look at how much we bring in. But they're not talking about how that money goes out the back in healthcare, in car crashes, in work absenteeism, in addiction. And so it really looks good from the front, but when you open the hood, like when you pull the curtain back, it's actually worse.
I see. Yeah. So then how can we direct our children, our future generation, because apparently this is really harmful to our communities.
Yeah, so what I try to do when I speak to young people is that I try to give them real information about what's going on, but I also, health-wise, but I also try to talk to them about marketing, because they don't necessarily respond. Like if you're a parent and you tell your child, hey, this could legitimately affect your brain in a permanent way. This could potentially change the trajectory of your life. This isn't worth it. You know, there's a lot of ways to have fun. You could do better. They might say, you know, Mom, you don't know what you're talking about. Dad, you don't know. You know, like you're out of touch. You know, like this is woke. This is new. You know, like this is what everybody's doing, because these are the messages that they're being sent. But if you take the time also then to talk to them about the market, and about how facts like how 90% of all addictions start before you're hitting age 20. So if you're in the business of addiction for profit, you target young people and you name products. All you have to do is go online, look at a marijuana dispensary, see the names of the products they're selling. They're appealing to young people. Look at the edibles that are being sold. You know, a lot of them are very high sugar, brownies and candies and things like this. You know, your 45-year-old pre-diabetic isn't going to be going for that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of manipulation that goes on, and although some young people will respond to legitimate information about health, what I've found is that you tell them that they're getting played by adults, like, oh, they're trying to use you for money. That will get a rise out of them. So I try to actually go at it from both angles, give real legitimate information about the health impact, but also try to show them how they're being used, because young people want respect. They don't want to feel like they're being used for money.
Then do they have the same effect, just eating marijuana like candies from candies and food and coffee, they can put it together, or smoking? Are they same?
So yes in some ways and no in others. So in terms of THC, which is again the active ingredient in marijuana, THC is THC no matter how you put it into your body. However, if you eat it, it tends to go in much more slowly. And why that matters is that, say, for driving, if you took an edible, something that you eat, it takes almost 2 hours for it to hit you, whereas it's almost immediate if you're smoking or vaping. And so you could take one and say, well, you know, I'm fine to drive, and then you can be on the road and be worse than when you started. Another problem is that you can't stop that from going into your body once you eat it. So the way most people smoke marijuana joints or vaping is you basically just smoke as much as you want. When you feel the way you want to, you slow down and then stop. With an edible, when you eat it, it's going in. You know, there's no little bits at a time. It's just you ate it, whatever you ate is going into your body unless you vomit it back up. And so when people have the most problem that has them ending up in the emergency room, it's usually from edibles, because they've taken too much, they didn't know it, or maybe they take one, they're not feeling the way they want to, then they do another if they're not used to taking THC products. That's been a huge problem. So in terms of the THC itself, no, it doesn't make a difference, but the delivery system, eating versus smoking, makes a difference in how hard it hits you for sure.
What about the people actually grow marijuana at home, and is it legal?
So if you have a medical marijuana card, you can grow 5 plants at home. If you do not have a medical marijuana card, you actually cannot, and it is illegal. One of the issues, though, and the police brought this up during the process of talking about this at the state, is they're going to have no way really of telling. There's really no way to police this. So to actually tell if someone has a card or not, someone would almost have to report them, and then you have to go and you have to check. This is partially why, if you look up news from states out west particularly, but Colorado is notorious for this. There are cartels that actually buy up houses and then grow marijuana in it. And then ship it illegally around the country, because it's easier to just grow it in a house in a legalized state and ship it over state lines than it is to bring it over a border. And the police don't have time to look into everything. And so that was one of their concerns. But if you don't have a medical card, you can't grow it at home legally.
What about the police concern?
So the police are very concerned for a number of reasons. One has to do with the home grows for sure, but one of their biggest concerns is with driving. So we know that marijuana actually does impair you to drive, and there's actually a lot of confusion about that as well. Some people feel like it doesn't impact your ability to drive. It absolutely does. And the issue is that there's no way right now for police to test whether or not you're actually intoxicated. Because marijuana, THC, the active component, is a very interesting chemical in that it's what's called lipophilic. It's attracted to fat. And your brain is a very fatty mass of cells. It's a very fatty area of your body. And so what happens actually is that the THC goes out of your blood and into your brain very fast. It's basically all out within 4 hours, and a lot of it's out even within 90 minutes. However, unlike with alcohol, where the alcohol in your blood corresponds to how impaired you are, and we can measure that, THC doesn't work that way. The THC in your blood doesn't correspond because it's out of your blood and into your brain. With alcohol, it's out of your blood and out of your body. With THC, it's out of your blood and into your brain. And so police can't detect if someone is driving impaired. There's no legally accepted test for that right now, other than actually bringing them to a hospital and having blood drawn, which is not the same as a roadside breathalyzer. And remember, if it takes too long for them to get there, they're not going to find it in the blood, even though they're actually impaired while they're driving. So the police are very concerned about that in particular.
I see. Do you have any comments to our audience today?
Yeah. Well, so the thing that I'd say is most important to understand about marijuana and in the legalized market is that this is not the same substance that people have been used to in the past. Back at Woodstock, decades ago, it was about 3% THC. Right now, the average of a flower, the product you smoke, is almost 7 times as strong. It's 21% THC, and it can go up to 30, 35. So it's like lighting 7 joints up at once of what it used to be. It's not the same thing. There's a lot of people looking to get very rich off of misunderstandings and misperceptions and giving out data and information that's not true. We've seen this story play out before with cigarettes, where Big Tobacco lied to us for decades to make money at our expense. And so we're seeing something similar happen now. Just go in with open eyes. Have your kids go in with open eyes. Make sure you talk about the truth, because the messages that are being supported by the industry are very different.
Thank you for coming to our station and sharing your story with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Global Leaders Network, WinTV. If you want to watch this again, you can watch this through our website and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe us. And I want to see all of you next Thursday, 9 p.m. And until then, have a great week. Bye-bye, everyone.